They say that some nights change the course of an entire family, and that certain arrivals carry the weight of a comet. That's how it was when the gray car stopped in front of the stone mansion. The California sky burned in an impossible gold, the vines shimmered like small constellations, and Claire Hamilton felt, without knowing why, that the air had a new taste. The light outlined the stacked barrels, the gravel crackled underfoot, and for a moment, everything seemed suspended, as if the winery held its breath to welcome whoever was coming. Claire adjusted the clipboard against her chest, her green eyes steadying the facade of someone who never falters, but her skin betraying a subtle shiver, the kind that appears when destiny shifts gears. Evelyn Carter stepped out of the car with a calm that didn't ask for permission but also didn't declare war. Short, deliberately tousled red hair, blue eyes that didn't just look, they interpreted, a small suitcase, as if she didn't intend to take up too much space, and yet, she took up all of it. She lifted her face, inhaled the air as if she could taste the afternoon, and smiled faintly, like someone finding the right note hidden in an old song. Claire noticed the details and fractions, the slight forward tilt of her posture, the care with which Evelyn touched the suitcase handle, the way her shoulders relaxed as she faced the endless rows of grapes. This was home to her. This had always been home to Claire. It was in that silent recognition that the first spark leaped. "Welcome to Hamilton Estate," Claire said, firm, as if the script were engraved on her tongue. "Harvest is approaching. We need to be precise." "Wine thanks us when precision knows how to listen," Evelyn replied, unhurried. "Where do the grapes whisper the loudest, Claire?" The question, so simple, settled into the afternoon like a secret. Claire didn't look away. She led her through the courtyard, under the cool shade of fig trees, to the cellar that had always felt like a cathedral of wood and steel. The scent inside was a blend of memory and promise, ripe fruit, toasted oak, the clean dampness of ancient stones. Every step had sound. Every sound had temperature. The yellow light carved corridors between the barrels, and the suspended dust seemed to reveal invisible paths. "Our grandparents called this the wine's breath," Claire said. "The silence that tells a story. And the story is thirsty for the future," Evelyn smiled, resting her hand on a barrel. "May I?" Claire nodded. Evelyn closed her eyes and pressed her ear to the wood, as if listening for a heartbeat. The scene held something intimate without being improper, a reverence, almost. Evelyn's gesture was precise, but there was a warmth to it, a respect that bridged the gap between method and mystery. Beside her, Claire felt her own breath slow, guided by this ritual that wasn't hers and yet seemed meant for her. Official introductions happened at a long table, with 3 glasses aligned and a notepad. Claire was 26, slender, with shoulders firm from carrying responsibilities early, skin that the sun gilded easily. Her elegance came from control, an impeccable white shirt, wavy brown hair pinned up neatly, not a strand out of place. Her hands, long and steady, spoke their own language when they neared the glasses. Evelyn, 29, was the opposite in shape but equal in intensity, lean, agile, movements like contained music, a navy blue shirt with rolled-up sleeves, wrists marked by tiny splashes of old wine, as if she carried a past in discreet stains. When she brought the glass to her lips, she touched the lower lip first, a soft gesture, almost a kiss on the rim. "Do you hear the apricot in the north plot?" Evelyn asked after swirling the glass with a loose wrist. "I hear what it's fighting to hide," Claire replied, surprising herself with the answer. An acidity dressed as sweetness, for now. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was dense with attention. There was electricity in the air, but also a thread of respect that held each word at its proper weight. Claire laid out the house rules, the limits of innovation, the ghosts that had always haunted the family, without naming them. Evelyn listened with her whole body, leaning forward, fingers resting on the table, lifting her gaze when courage was needed. When she disagreed, she did it like someone offering a glass, firmly, without pushing. The afternoon spilled into slow steps between the vineyard rows. The leaves held a translucent green, and the wind passed lightly, opening paths that closed right behind them. Claire walked with the confidence of someone who knew the terrain with her eyes closed, Evelyn, with the curiosity of someone memorizing the landscape through details. They stopped on a rise where the earth changed color. "This is where last year's harvest almost broke us," Claire said, kneeling, feeling the soil texture between her fingers. "The heat came early. My father would have changed the cut." I held firm. "And held the world with both hands," Evelyn replied, crouching beside her. The closeness was inevitable. "If the heat comes early again, I'd pick the east plot a night sooner. Not out of fear. Out of listening." The word listening opened a window. Claire felt something shift in her chest, as if an old piece gave way just a millimeter, enough for light to enter. Evelyn ran her hand over the leaves, her thumb gliding slowly over the velvety texture, and Claire noticed the enologist's gaze. It wasn't just technique. It was a kind of tenderness for what wasn't yet wine. And tenderness, here, had a strength Claire both recognized and feared. They returned to the cellar as the sun slanted. The room took on an amber hue, and the sounds changed timbre, less metal, more wood, fewer voices, more footsteps. Evelyn opened a notebook and wrote without hurry. Claire watched the slanted, clean, decisive handwriting. It was funny how some letters seemed to smile. Almost without meaning to, Claire moved her hand closer to the table, her fingertips brushing the shadow of Evelyn's hand cast by the light. The world didn't collapse or rise, it simply registered. Evelyn didn't pull her shadow back. She kept writing, and the two stayed quiet for long seconds, sharing the same edge of silence. "Do you usually win, or do you usually convince?" Evelyn asked, closing the notebook, her blue eyes steady like two lighthouses. "I usually hold everything in place," Claire replied, more honest than she'd intended. "The rest I've learned to call a luxury." "And what if holding is just the first part?" Evelyn rested her elbow on the table, chin on her fingers. "What if the wine asks for one more step?" The words fell soft and heavy, like ripe grapes into the right crate. Claire looked away, at the barrels, the suspended dust, her own hands. She felt her skin warm, her pulse in her temples, and noticed the scent of dark fruit mixed with oak vanilla, a fragrance that had always calmed her but now called her elsewhere. She thought of her grandparents, their photo smiling beside the first planted rose, of her father, his hand on her shoulder the day responsibility changed hands. For the first time in a long while, she felt that courage and care might be the same thing told by different voices. A faint crack echoed from a corner of the room, wood breathing, nothing more. Still, the noise seemed to legitimize Claire's doubt, give it form. Evelyn lifted a small, unlabeled test bottle, and the light drew gold patterns on the glass. "I'll propose a cut just to hear what it says," she said, voice almost low. "I'm not asking you to accept. I'm asking you to taste." She poured a little into Claire's glass without touching her. The distance between them was measured in a breath. Claire brought the liquid to her nose, closed her eyes. The aroma rose in layers, something citrus at first, a bruised fruit in the middle, a hint of flower at the end. On her tongue came a beautiful tension, a thread that pulled and released, never breaking. Claire opened her eyes slowly. Evelyn watched without intruding, with the care of someone who knows some silences are worth more than an entire thesis. "It has path," Claire said, in a thread of voice that was still resolute. "Path is everything," Evelyn replied, softly, as if sharing a secret and a vow. Her gaze lingered for a second on the curve of Claire's neck, rose, lingered on the green of those eyes. Claire felt her skin warm at her collarbone, a slow, polite heat, but undeniable. Her body noticed before her mind. And when her mind noticed, it didn't want to flee. Outside, the wind shifted, bringing the scent of the crushing yard, a fresh, alive, almost musical perfume. Evening descended, and the room felt smaller, more intimate. Claire tucked back a stubborn strand of hair, and Evelyn followed the motion with her eyes, like someone tracing a constellation with a fingertip. Claire's clipboard slipped slightly on the table. Evelyn reached out reflexively, her fingertips almost grazing Claire's. Almost. The almost was enough for both hearts to miss a beat and find each other on the next. "Tomorrow at 5, in the East Plot," Evelyn said, stepping back a centimeter that, for how small it was, became an invitation. "I want to show you the light it holds before sunrise." Claire nodded, unsmiling, but with something new gleaming behind her gaze. She gathered papers, straightened her posture, turned off 2 of the room's lights. Only the corner lamp remained, carving a sliver between shadows, like a promise. They walked side by side to the door. There, they paused. The hallway breathed cold, the night outside held the good weight of beginnings. Claire turned her face half a degree toward Evelyn. Evelyn lowered her eyelids a millimeter. The world shrank until it fit in that small space between unspoken words. Then, from the courtyard, someone called Claire's name. The reply stayed in her throat, her gaze suspended, her hand a step from touching the door's wood, and not touching. When the alarm rang at 4:40, the house still smelled of night. Claire sat on the edge of the bed with the sensation of waking inside a decision she didn't remember making. The cold water on her face brought the world's outline back, the East Plot, Evelyn's invitation, the promise of a light that only exists before sunrise. She put on a linen shirt, pinned her hair without achieving the rigor of a perfect bun, grabbed her jacket and clipboard out of habit. She crossed the nearly empty courtyard, where yellow lamps drew timid circles on the gravel. In the distance, a blue dot, Evelyn's jacket, leaning against a post, her breath escaping in short wisps of vapor. It was too early for certainties, still, certainties seemed to emerge wherever she was. "You came," Evelyn said, simply, like stating an everyday miracle. "I said I would," Claire replied, standing close, her shoulder almost brushing Evelyn's sleeve. "Show me the light." They walked between damp rows. The earth gave back a metallic, fresh scent, the leaves held droplets that shone like glass threads. The silence had texture, a soft pause amplifying every sound, the shy rustle of vines, a distant bird's cry, gravel yielding under boots. When the clearing opened, the slope revealed itself as a natural amphitheater. The first band of brightness appeared on the horizon and spilled slowly, lightly touching the leaves, igniting impossible greens. "Here, the light arrives sideways," Evelyn explained, voice low, almost reverent. "The grape skin warms less, the sugar holds back, the acidity breathes. It's where wine finds nerve without losing tenderness." Claire didn't answer for several seconds. She let the vision sink in until her heart slowed. Evelyn's technical poetry, that blend of science and care, had an effect she didn't know where to place. She glanced sidelong. Evelyn's red hair caught the light as if holding a quiet flame. Her blue eyes bit into the landscape and returned a question. It was a moving painting, and somehow, Claire was part of it. "You suggested harvesting a little earlier," she said, returning to the practical tone that had always protected her. "It's a risk. It's also a decision," Evelyn countered. "Grapes don't wait for our fear." The phrase hung in the air, like a light curtain caught on a nail. They approached a cluster. Evelyn lifted her hand, gesturing for Claire to taste first. Her fingers brushed the back of Claire's hand minimally, accidentally, and yet, it was incendiary. The pulp burst, fresh, with a restrained sweetness. Claire's tongue recognized the map of what would become wine, and with it, a low heat climbing her spine. "It's ready," she admitted, almost annoyed by her own certainty. "So you trust it?" "I verify," Claire replied, and a rare, toothless smile flashed across her face like lightning. They returned to the cellar as the first crew arrived, voices mingling with metal sounds, the world waking. Evelyn pointed to a whiteboard. "If we align the crushing of the East Plot for dawn, we preserve freshness. Then we blend it with the North Slope lot, short extraction. Half neutral oak, half steel. We let the wine speak before telling it what to say. Claire crossed her arms, her gaze dancing between arrows and numbers. She knew how to build spreadsheets like someone constructing bridges. She knew how to swap barrels and balance books under rain. What she didn't know was where to put the feeling that, near Evelyn, things grew sharper and more dangerous. What if the crew questions it? She asked. They trust the story. You're proposing a new chapter. Good stories don't repeat, they continue, Evelyn said firmly. And I don't want to override anything, Claire. I want to walk alongside. I want to walk alongside. The 3 words hit Claire's chest with a delicacy that hurt. She nodded slowly, not fully surrendering. She signed the schedule. The pen weighed differently in her hand. Beside her, Evelyn exhaled in relief for a second and stored the gesture. She stayed professional. And it was that self-control that heightened the tension, not the kind that burns and consumes, but the kind that illuminates, defines, sustains. The day unfolded like a film with precise editing. In the tasting room, sensory notes accumulated. In the lab, graphs took shape. Between tasks, small scenes, small bridges. Evelyn adjusted the refractometer and, without realizing, let her sleeve brush Claire's forearm. The contact was a gentle shock. Claire stepped back half a pace, as if testing her own balance, then returned. Their eyes met. There was no fragility, there was attention. Know what fascinates me most about wine? Evelyn asked, putting away the equipment. It learns from wounds. A hot vintage changes the next one's skin, sweetness knows what it's lost. I've always tried to hide mine, Claire said quietly, almost surprised at herself. The losses. Maybe hiding is a kind of care, Evelyn smiled sideways. Until it isn't. The clinking of bottles cut the moment. A worker asked for Claire's signature. She took a deep breath, signed, and as she handed back the clipboard, she felt Evelyn's absence beside her like someone had taken away a light. Mid-afternoon, news from the neighboring co-op arrived like a cold wave. They'd closed a deal with a major distributor, aggressive prices, early delivery. A blot of insecurity passed through the team. Claire gathered everyone. She spoke clearly, without drama. They'd focus on quality, the new cut, they wouldn't compete low. Some faces hesitated. Evelyn stood behind, silent but present, like an invisible anchor. When people left, Claire pressed her hands on the table. She looked at Evelyn. If this fails, I risk my family's name. If you don't try, you risk your own, Evelyn replied, offering a water bottle like offering time. And I'm with you. The "I'm with you" held no exaggeration. It had ground. It had commitment. It held the promise of a shoulder that doesn't take your place but holds the weight while you breathe. Claire drank in silence. She felt her throat warm. She thanked her without saying thanks. By dusk, the east plot began to be harvested under a copper sky. Lanterns were lit, low music escaped small radios, someone's laughter burst nearby, a reminder that life runs parallel to the dramas we imagine. Claire coordinated logistics with her usual precision, but her eyes, now and then, sought the small figure in the blue jacket. Evelyn checked crates, tasted grapes, took notes, aligned the crew with a gesture, a look, a short phrase. In every movement was the same blend of science and devotion that had enchanted Claire that morning. During the first break, they were alone by the crusher, where the scent of freshly cut fruit dominated everything. The night brought a fine breeze. Claire's skin prickled under her shirt. Evelyn noticed. Cold? She asked, already removing her jacket. No, Claire replied, but the word lacked conviction. Evelyn lifted the jacket to Claire's shoulders without forcing it, like offering shelter while leaving room for refusal. Claire yielded half a step. The jacket settled slowly, and with it came a good warmth, a trace of Evelyn's scent, a discreet fragrance, clean, with something of wood and citrus. For a moment, The world narrowed to this: fabric, a smell, a presence. "Thank you," Claire said, her voice slightly rough. "Just until you warm up," Evelyn replied, smiling without asking for anything in return. They continued. Grapes turned to juice, juice to promise. When they reached the cellar for the first must-tasting, the room was in half-light. The overhead lights were off to spare eyes and energy, only 2 side lamps outlined the space. Evelyn filled a pipette, poured 2 glasses. She handed one to Claire without touching her skin, maintaining a distance that, paradoxically, drew them closer. "This is the birth," she said, lifting her glass to the light. "Still cloudy, still undecided. But see how it already breathes." Claire smelled, then tasted, her tongue carrying the draft of a future. The liquid had a bright acidity, a vibration like orange peel and rain on hot stone. She stepped back, leaning against a large barrel. Evelyn stood before her, inches away. The space between them gained another gravity. "You're right," Claire whispered. "There's nerve, and there's tenderness." "You're the one who's right," Evelyn corrected, and her gaze dipped briefly to Claire's mouth, then rose again, steady. The wine just confirmed. The following silence didn't break anything, it refined. Claire felt her heart marking a steady but quicker rhythm. Evelyn's breath mingled with hers without dominating. The jacket's warmth on her shoulders, still there, was a discreet pact. Reflexively, Claire reached to remove a fiber from Evelyn's collar. Her fingers brushed skin for a second, soft and warm. Evelyn didn't move. Her body responded with a visible shiver running from neck to collarbone. They laughed softly, complicit in an excess they didn't know where to place. "The crew will ask for the cut's name," Evelyn said, easing the tension gently. "We can't call it Test forever." "My family's names have always been places," Claire replied. "But I think this one is a decision." "And what do you call a decision?" Evelyn asked. Claire thought. She saw the morning slope, the sideways light, the small courage of signing a new schedule. She saw the jacket gesture, the pipette, the short laugh, the almost. She smiled, a full smile, one she rarely permitted. Maybe first light. The approval was implicit in Evelyn's gleaming eyes. She repeated it, savoring the syllables. First light. I like how it starts inside and moves outward. Before they could say more, the power flickered for a few seconds. A soft darkness took the room. Machines slowed, a distant call echoed in the courtyard. Evelyn set her glass down, as if freeing her hands. Claire stayed still, eyes adjusting. Outlines emerged gradually, like someone redrawing the world in charcoal. They saw each other only by proximity, a minimal gleam in their eyes, a reflection on the glass, each other's shoulders outlined by the returning light. "Claire," Evelyn called, in a tone that wasn't a request or certainty, just presence. The reply was halfway to Claire's lips when the lights flickered back on, revealing them where they stood, too close for protocol, close enough for the heart to understand. A worker appeared at the door, breathless. "We need you in the courtyard." "One of the crates." He made a distressed gesture. "Better see." Claire and Evelyn's eyes met for a last second, like pressing a promise into a palm before letting go. They nodded, almost in unison, and walked out side by side, the hallway's cold light swallowing the room's warm shadows, the rest of what might have been said lingering between one step and the next. The courtyard problem proved less dramatic than the alarm suggested, but enough to rattle the crew. 2 East Plot crates had been stacked crookedly, grapes crushed, juice trailing like red stains on gravel. Claire knelt, ran her fingers through the liquid, and in a second, recognized the haste that had ruined entire labors before. She stood and directed the rearrangement with short, clear gestures, her voice firm but not harsh. Beside her, Evelyn did what she did best, turned chaos into rhythm, repositioned people, asked for calm. When they finished, they faced each other, breathless, hands stained with tinted skin. "We didn't lose the grapes," Evelyn said, as if also saying, "We didn't lose time. But we lost the first impression." Claire looked at the trail on the ground, brow furrowed. "Who stacked them like this?" No one answered. A young man cast a guilty glance and vanished. Evelyn exhaled, lowered her voice. "Sometimes first impressions are well-told lies," she said, her blue eyes finding Claire's. "We'll make another." The phrase lodged in a vulnerable place in Claire. She nodded, went to the faucet, washed her hands, and felt the cold water bring the world back. Evelyn, unannounced, rolled her sleeves higher, revealing forearms that matched her words, work and delicacy. The night continued as if life understood the message, and by dawn, the winery ricocheted back into its axis. Hours later, an email exploded on Claire's phone. The San Francisco distributor had moved their visit to that afternoon. They wanted to see the famous consultant. Claire read it standing in the hallway, her heart skipping for reasons unrelated to the message. She changed in her room, swapping the utility shirt for a dark blue silk blouse, a discreet V-neck, enough to soften the uniform without surrendering authority. She loosened part of her bun, 2 strands fell gently. Seeing herself in the mirror, she didn't recognize the immediate vanity, and so, she knew whose fault it was without blaming anyone. In the tasting room, the table was set with care that spoke volumes without excess, aligned glasses, neutral bread, fresh water. Evelyn arrived last. She wore a cream linen chemise, the light fabric draping her slender frame like a promise of breeze. A minimal necklace traced her collarbone. Her red hair was slightly more styled, not enough to become a topic, but enough to be noticed by who mattered. Claire noticed. And, in self-preservation, moved straight to the sample list. The distributor brought a loud assistant and an oversized smile. He commented on the charm of family wineries, and the feminine touch that saves vintages. Claire smiled with all the teeth diplomacy required, but her jaw ached from the effort. Evelyn remained professional without losing her unique light. When the assistant asked for something with more personality, a wine that winks, she raised an eyebrow and glanced at Claire, as if asking, "May I?" Claire answered with a nearly imperceptible chin nod. Evelyn led the tasting. She described First Light, without naming it, as if portraying someone not yet introduced. "Here, we let the morning work," she explained. "Less vanity, more breath." She swirled the glass with a loose wrist, brought it to her nose, then her mouth. "Feel it? It doesn't try to conquer by shouting. It comes close and says, 'I'm here.'" The assistant laughed, awkwardly. The distributor nodded, serious, grasping what mattered. Claire watched with a mix of pride and an unnamed discomfort. Seeing Evelyn shine awoke a contradictory warmth in her, made of admiration and something else. Jealousy? Not the word. It was a desire to keep that light for the cellar, for the sensory notes only they knew how to read together. "And you, Claire?" the distributor asked. "What's your take?" She breathed, took the glass. She remembered the dawn slope, Evelyn's light touch offering the cluster. "It's a wine that asks to be listened to," she said, without embellishment. "Those who listen, stay." And as she spoke, she felt she'd said more than intended. After the tasting, the assistant insisted on a photo, for the brand narrative. He positioned them too close, his arm around Claire's back, an invasive gesture disguised as networking. Before Claire could step back, Evelyn slid between them with deft humor. "Here, the star is the wine," she said, amused, placing the bottle center stage, drawing eyes. The click captured what mattered. The assistant, frustrated without knowing why, thanked them and left with the distributor, promises of emails, a handshake lingering on the edge of acceptable. Alone, the room relaxed. Afternoon light drew gold streaks on wood. Claire pressed her hands on the table and exhaled. "Thank you," she said, and she wasn't talking about the photo. I saw your shoulder tense, Evelyn replied, lightly touching the exact spot where tension always lived. The contact was brief, just enough for Claire's skin to respond with immediate heat, like a polite electric current. Evelyn withdrew her hand the next second, as if returning something she hadn't meant to take. Claire turned her face to hide the blush she couldn't control in time. She grabbed a test bottle, busied herself wiping the spout with a cloth that didn't need cleaning. She caught Evelyn's scent, clean wood, citrus peel, something like rain, and hated herself for noticing so much. You shone, she said at last. And I. She didn't finish. You held everything in place, Evelyn completed. There's no shine without structure. She smiled sideways. And, Claire, you don't have to apologize for being good at what holds. The afternoon slipped into the hour that always feels most honest, when light yields and the day admits it must become another. In the crushing yard, the low music returned, someone sang off-key, laughter spilled between crates. A fine wind stirred gravel, lifting dust of promises. Claire oversaw lot transport to the tank when Evelyn appeared beside her, pointing to a lightness of foam forming too soon. Agitated beyond expected, she said. We can cool the tank more or shorten extraction. Which path is yours? Claire measured the world in seconds. She felt the old need to follow her family's ruler, the new urge to try by the moment's pulse. She chose the latter. We shorten. And the verb, spoken so, brought a kind of sweet vertigo. Next, they entered the lab. The light here was whiter, colder, and yet Evelyn managed to warm every edge. As Claire recorded measurements, Evelyn approached from behind to adjust the refractometer's angle. Her face hovered inches from Claire's neck. The air changed weight. Evelyn spoke low, and the heat wave her voice carried touched the skin exposed by the V-neck. Like this, she whispered, and the like this held the patience of someone not rushing the inevitable. See? The reading reveals when you let go. Claire let go. The focal line adjusted. Numbers emerged like obvious constellations that still surprise. She turned her head a fraction too far. They were eye to eye, so close the world needed permission to exist. The discreet neckline, once just a clothing choice, became a presence. Evelyn didn't look, Evelyn perceived. The difference between the two made all the difference. You're going to make me lose control of the lab, Claire said, trying to smile lightly and failing halfway. I'd rather you make me lose track of time, Evelyn replied, and what could have been boldness became simply the right phrase. The tension gained form, not as threat but as invitation. A noise in the hallway saved them from themselves, hurried footsteps, voices calling for pump calibration. They stepped out almost dazed by the clarity of what hadn't happened. Along the way, a loose thread from Evelyn's chemise caught on a corner. Claire noticed immediately and, in a quick motion, freed it with her thumb. Her fingers lingered a second too long on the soft fabric, grazing Evelyn's shoulder. Evelyn closed her eyes for just a moment, a silent gratitude precisely the size of the gesture. Night fell completely. The vineyard became a sea of scattered lights. They finished the stage without further surprises. When the machine settled into rest, the cellar breathed like someone finally lying down. Claire and Evelyn stayed behind, gathering small things as if they were large: notes, lids, 2 forgotten glasses. One of the lamps flickered, casting the right corner of the room into a shadow that sharpened the voice of things. You have a way of arriving that doesn't scratch, Claire said, not looking at her, as if speaking to the wood. And somehow, I always want to make more space. Evelyn took half a step closer. She didn't touch. Her whole body said, I heard. I want to stay, she replied. But I only stay where I'm asked to. The echo of the phrase traveled through the room. Claire felt her throat tighten and her chest expand at the same time. She turned slowly. The air between them seemed to have its own temperature. Evelyn's gaze dipped to Claire's lips, then rose with discipline. The silence grew heavy with what didn't need saying. Claire lifted her hand, hesitant, as if to brush aside a stray red lock. The strand escaped on its own before she could touch it. A faint laugh threatened to surface. "Early tomorrow, I want to redo the extraction curve with you," she said, reaching for work as the rope that kept her from falling where she wanted to fall. "Early tomorrow," Evelyn repeated, like accepting a truce that was, in truth, another kind of promise. Then someone called, "Claire," from the hallway, an urgency carried by a clipboard. They looked at each other for one more second, a second that explained everything and resolved nothing. Claire nodded and took 2 steps back. Evelyn stayed where she was, as if holding that space for when the words finished being born. Claire's hand hovered midair, caught between the desire to act and the politeness of retreat, halfway to a touch that didn't happen, not yet. The next morning dawned with a kind of silence that seemed unwilling to be broken. The courtyard still bore traces of an old celebration, tire marks, a forgotten scarf on a bench, empty bottles no one claimed. Claire crossed it all with a new notebook under her arm and the uneasy feeling of carrying a secret in her pocket. She'd slept little, and in the little she'd slept, she'd dreamed of hands that almost touched, of light coming sideways to reveal what the whole day pretended not to see. In the lab, the extraction spreadsheet lay open, the graphs awaiting decisions. Outside, light footsteps, the familiar sound of someone approaching carefully, interrupting only what needed interrupting. "Brought coffee," Evelyn said, entering with 2 steaming cups and an expression balancing the joy of being there and the acute awareness that too much joy might break the spell. "And the night report." Fermentation in batch 2 asked for another dance. "So did I," Claire replied, the words slipping out unfiltered. "I mean, for the batches." She accepted the coffee. Their fingers brushed, a minimal shock that, for being minimal, traveled through everything. They leaned over the same paper, shoulder to shoulder without touching, as if learning to read the same line with synchronized breaths. Evelyn pointed to the curve rising too fast. "If we extend by 20 minutes, we gain structure without stripping the skin." Claire nodded. She ran her finger along the table, letting her nail scratch the margin like carving a date into wood. The closeness smelled of fresh roast, orange peel, something subtly woody that Claire already recognized as Evelyn's morning scent. Workflow brought messages, 2 calls, an unannounced supplier visit. Claire greeted them with the cordiality she'd learned to wear as armor. Evelyn kept a respectful distance, but every time Claire glanced away mid-sentence, Evelyn's blue eyes were there, steady, available, saying, "I'll hold it with you." That kind of presence has a specific weight. The body understands before any theory. By late morning, Claire went up to the house's high office to search the archives for an old plot map. The wooden hallway, the black and white photos, the shadows the curtains drew when the wind passed, everything whispered family. Evelyn followed soon after, carrying her grandmother's worn production diary. "Found another note about the East plot," she said. She called it, "the sweat worth the bottle," as if every decision was a small rebellion in favor of life. Claire spread the map on the table. Reflexively, she removed her blazer, leaving only the dark blue silk blouse, which at this hour caught the window light and deepened. The V-neck traced a clear line on her skin. Evelyn noticed the change as if the light had decided to underline a favorite phrase. She didn't stare, she looked the right way, the kind learned with time. She approached, standing on the other side of the table. The diary lay beside the map, its pages open to slanted handwriting that seemed to walk. "She took risks when she loved," Evelyn said, slowly running a fingertip over a date. "Maybe that's the secret of things that last." "Risking is my least spoken language," Claire smiled humorlessly. "But I'm learning." "The lessons are working," Evelyn replied, a glint of lightness in her gaze. They lingered in a silence that lasted longer than silence. Outside, someone shouted a number, a truck backed up slowly, the gate creaked like a cord. Inside, the room held a different temperature. Claire pointed to a small fold in the terrain on the map. "This is where the breeze shifts," she explained. "Down there, the grape rests. Here, it talks." "And you?" Evelyn asked, eyes still on the map. "Where do you rest?" The question entered like someone who knew the house. Claire breathed. "In few people. In fewer places." She lifted her gaze. "And sometimes, only in promise." Evelyn nodded, a gesture that said, "I understand the promises that hold up days." She opened her mouth to reply, but a knock at the door brought them back. A worker came to report that First Light had started emitting unexpected notes, nothing critical, just something needing a keen eye and attentive ear. They descended the stairs like people running without showing it. At the tank, the foam showed a new pattern. Evelyn adjusted the valve, called for a quick cool-down, looked at Claire. The agreement came not just with a nod, it came with her whole body. After lunch, the winery ran like an old clock at the right pace. The sun, already slanting, dissolved long shadows across the courtyard. Evelyn appeared with a vine cutting in a pot, rescued from an exhausted plot. "I don't like seeing living things treated as objects," she said, setting the plant on an empty counter. "We can try to revive it. It's work. Might come to nothing." Claire ran her hand over the leaves carefully, feeling the green velvet, and said, "It's already something, just not throwing it away." The afternoon continued with medium tests and small decisions. In one, Claire wanted to try a risky cut. Evelyn listened to the arguments, considered, agreed. "We'll do it your way," she said, with a faith that encouraged without pushing. Suddenly, Claire felt the childish urge to say stay to someone already staying. But she swapped it for, "Thank you." The thank you weighed more than 2 syllables. By formal quitting time, the team dwindled to a handful, then 3, then 2. The windows reflected liquid gold on the cellar floor. Claire swapped her low heels for clean boots, her feet sought earth even indoors. Evelyn, in her cream chemise and a thin chain catching the light, tied her hair unsuccessfully and let a red strand escape on purpose. "Shall we redo the extraction curve?" she asked, pointing to the tank like indicating a star. They went together. The half-light of the technical room turned metal into a domestic sky. Claire adjusted a lever, Evelyn fetched the pipette. Their hands danced close, here then there, until they met midair by accident. Not a shock, a meeting. Both retreated a centimeter, laughed with a new care, like not scaring off a bird. "Do you notice how things change tone near you?" Claire said softly, almost surprised by her own courage. "The day stays the same, but the music shifts." "Maybe because you're listening to a different track," Evelyn replied, sweetness in what could have sounded bold. "I just point where the needle might land." The phrase lit something concrete. Claire released the lever, took 2 steps back from protocol, and stood before Evelyn, her eyes finding a safe place in Evelyn's blue. The distance between them filled with the low hum of pumps, tuned breathing, the certainty they stood on shared ground. Evelyn lifted a sample glass, offering it like a vow. Claire touched the crystal as she took it, fingers on fingers, skin on skin, too brief, intense enough for both to know. They tasted. The liquid had shine, a beautiful nerve like morning. Claire smiled, whole now, unguarded, wanting. "It's..." She searched for a word that wouldn't cheapen it. "Alive." "You too," Evelyn said, so simply it became truth. The clock in the corner read 6:28. The window light dimmed one shade, then another. The world became semitones. Evelyn pulled an elastic from her pocket and, with a quick motion, pinned her hair in a makeshift half-bun, the nape of her neck exposed in a shape that made Claire's breath skip. The silk blouse, as she moved, followed her body with grace. The discreet neckline stayed discreet, but its presence became unmistakable, especially when Evelyn reached for a higher shelf and the fabric sketched a faint valley of skin where light perched like a bird. "I'll get it," Claire said, the verb coming out deeper. She passed behind Evelyn, her arm skirting Evelyn's shoulder without touching, heat a millimeter away. The vial was up high. Claire took it, handed it over, and in the handing, her fingers grazed the base of Evelyn's palm, where skin is softest. Evelyn inhaled silently, as if memorizing her body's coordinates. They stayed like that a second too long to call accidental. "Claire," Evelyn said, her name spoken with the temperature of ending afternoon. "I don't want to rush anything. But I also won't pretend it's not happening." Claire nodded. Her heart beat as if recognizing a new song it swore it knew. She stepped closer. Evelyn's shoulder touched Claire's, now, on purpose, lightly, testing the ground's strength. The silence, dense as it was, turned soft. The room listened. Then someone's forgotten radio, in a corner, chose to play an old song, a woman's clear voice, a guitar. The melody entered through the window and found them exactly where promises take shape. Evelyn, in a slow motion, brought her hand to Claire's collar and smoothed the fabric, like ironing out a thought. Claire, reflexively, rested her palm on Evelyn's outer arm, slid up a few centimeters and down, a brief caress leaving a heat trail. Their eyes locked. Their breathing did too. "I'm here," Evelyn said, both warning and shelter. "I know," Claire replied, both permission and desire. The ceiling lights, on a timer, dimmed another level. Only 2 dusty lamps remained, drawing ellipses on the floor. Outside, the winery entered its final care hours, quieter voices, rarer steps. Inside, time narrowed until it fit the span of a touch. Evelyn lifted her chin half a centimeter. Claire tilted her head with a care that seemed ancient choreography. The distant music found the rhythm of their hearts, and for a moment, everything seemed to align: the air, the light, the map of their hands, the courage, the interruption that didn't come. "If I go," Evelyn whispered, her lips a breath from Claire's skin, "I go all the way." "Then go," Claire answered, and the phrase hung like a key turning in an already ajar door. The distant pop of a cork returned a sliver of reality. Not enough to undo anything, just the announcement that the world continued without asking. They smiled, as if admitting that living means coexisting with interruptions. Evelyn touched her fingertips to the base of Claire's neck, a minimal, undeniable caress. Claire closed her eyes for a second, not to escape, to feel deeper. When she opened them, her expression held the rare kind of decision needing no words. "Come with me," she said, not an order, an invitation. "The lower cellar, no one goes there this hour." Evelyn nodded without hurry. One's hand sought the other's, slowly. Their fingers didn't lace yet, just recognized, skin on skin, a thread of light passing between palms. They walked side by side down the hall, where the half-light welcomed them like knowing their names. They descended 2 flights. The air grew cooler. The scent of oak and dark fruit took over. Claire pushed the heavy door, which creaked slightly, and they entered a space that seemed to hold echoes of old voices and, now, the promise of a new one. Claire closed the door with a soft click. Turned to Evelyn, the two just steps apart, the world reduced to this rectangle of low light, their hearts clear and ready. And then, finally, the distance between what's desired and what's lived shrank to the size of a gesture. The lower cellar door closed with a sigh of old wood, and the half-light embraced them like recognizing awaited guests. The cooler air carried a dense perfume of oak and dark fruit, the side lamps cast amber pools on the floor, carving shadows that stretched the barrels into columns. For a brief moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty, it was an open field for the heart to say what the mouth couldn't yet. Claire leaned against the door and inhaled deeply, as if placing her courage where it belonged. Evelyn took 2 steps forward, her blue eyes steady, a tenderness that didn't ask permission because it already had it. When she stopped before Claire, She didn't touch, she hovered a breath away, and the whole world balanced in that space. "If I cross," Evelyn said softly, her voice confessing and promising, "it's to stay." "Then cross," Claire replied, the words carrying the decision of someone finally accepting their hunger for life. The first touch was a rehearsal of a caress they'd been writing for days, Evelyn's fingertips brushing Claire's jawline, a touch with the exact temperature between care and desire. Claire closed her eyes briefly, like opening a window from within. When she looked again, she brought her hand to Evelyn's face with the same delicacy, her thumb tracing the apple of her cheek, feeling the warm skin, the calm and attentive pulse. The kiss happened without violence or hurry, deep from the start, like a toast honoring the entire harvest. Evelyn's mouth tasted of coffee and promise, Claire's, of decision and late honey. They adjusted to each other's rhythm with the patience of admirers, alternating breath and surrender, a second's distance to smile and the sweet urgency of reunion in a fraction of nothing. When Claire slid her hands to the nape of Evelyn's neck and felt the red strands escape the elastic, a shiver ran up like a thread of light beneath her skin. Evelyn responded by pulling back a centimeter to truly look at the woman before her, the intense green eyes, the dark blue silk blouse now absorbing and reflecting light subtly, the shoulders that had learned early to bear the world and were, slowly, beginning to rest. She placed her hands on Claire's shoulders and descended slowly, respecting every line, every pause. Their bodies recognized a map that hadn't been drawn but had been waiting for them. When they embraced fully, the fit had the naturalness of right gestures. It wasn't haste, it was inevitability. They walked a few steps, Claire's hand finding Evelyn's, fingers interlacing with the confidence of someone who holds and is held. They stopped between two old barrels, where the scent was sweeter and the shadow more complicit. Claire pressed Evelyn against the wood, not possessively, but like home. This, now, belonged to them both. The kiss resumed at a slower tempo, each advance met with a brief retreat that heightened the heat of the next meeting. Their breaths mingled, warming the cellar's cool air, their hearts gained speed, and the world narrowed to a clear melody of skin, lips, and breath spoken in unison. Evelyn reached for the hem of Claire's blouse, hesitated for the span of a glance, a silent, "May I?" Claire nodded and raised her arms, letting the fabric slip away like shedding a burden. The light settled on Claire's skin as if recognizing it from before. Evelyn traced the line from shoulder to arm with her fingertips, a gesture saying, "I see you, and I choose you," at once. Claire responded by placing her hands on Evelyn's waist, feeling the slender, firm body, drawing her closer until there was no gap between promise and surrender. There was another pause, the pause that guards what's precious, and then Evelyn pressed her lips to the spot where Claire's neck met her collarbone, a lingering kiss, a gratitude for all that came before and all that would follow. Claire tilted her head to grant passage, eyes closed, one hand in Evelyn's hair, the other on the barrel's wood, seeking an anchor that, in truth, was in the woman holding her. Their hands began learning the language of each other's bodies with the delicacy of spelling sacred names. Evelyn traced slow paths down Claire's spine, pausing where her skin trembled. Claire responded by exploring Evelyn's back, the shape of her shoulder blades, the warmth growing beneath the light linen, each touch a question answered by a contained sigh. Their mouths sought and found each other, now deep, now smiling, as if joy were desire's secret seasoning. There was no rush, just a sequence of doors opening the right way. When Claire, in a firmer motion, gripped Evelyn's waist and pulled her closer, Evelyn tightened her fingers at the small of Claire's back and spoke her name in a tone holding reverence and hunger. Time began losing its edges. Lips, hands, the cellar's perfume, the expanding heat, all converged toward a luminous center asking for more courage than haste. They shed layers like peeling a rare fruit, fabric sliding, a button yielding, an accidental smile when a detail resisted, a muffled laugh from two people recognizing each other at life's exact point of generosity. The stone floor's chill contrasted with their warmth, the wood's texture, within reach, gave the moment sharp contours, almost ritualistic. Evelyn seated Claire on the edge of a rustic bench and stood between her legs, cradling her face with both hands, asking and offering in a kiss that deepened the body's music at the right tempo. Claire responded by pulling her closer, making space, inviting, and Evelyn's answer was a sweet, whole advance. When they finally lay on the blanket stored in a chest, blanket smelling of storage and, now, beginning to smell like home, there were no more doubts or roles, just whole women, with their histories, fears, and courage, determined to turn what they felt into something alive. Evelyn traced Claire's skin like learning a new map, the shoulders curve, the arm's length, the valley of her chest, the line of her stomach. Claire sought Evelyn's face with brief kisses between caresses, as if signing, in Braille, a pact of care. Their breathing grew heavier, their sighs more frequent, and the cellar listened, respectful, to the sound of two people finding a language only theirs. When the movement intensified, it was because tenderness had opened the door. When the intensity eased, it was so tenderness could lead again. The climax arrived like perfect harvests, in the fruit's time, at the right rhythm, in waves that lifted and returned, leaving, in the end, a calm glow on all they touched. They lay entwined a while longer, their chests rising and falling in sync. Claire looked at the stone ceiling, the dust dancing in the light beam, and felt something within her settle. She turned to Evelyn, the red hair fanned across the blanket, the unguarded smile, the blue eyes holding a joy needing no fanfare. She brushed her fingers along Evelyn's temple, slowly, and whispered a truth she hadn't had the courage to voice until now. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for not leaving when it would have been easier." Evelyn placed her hand on Claire's chest and nodded with a touch like a prayer. "Thank you for opening," she replied. "Thank you for letting me stay." They dressed without hurry, sharing small laughs over a stubborn button, a tricky zipper, a strand of hair insisting on falling into Evelyn's eyes, fixed by Claire with a gesture reserved for those you love. They sat side by side on the bench, hands still linked, letting silence settle again, this time like placing a beautiful piece of furniture exactly where it belongs. Claire rested her head on Evelyn's shoulder and listened, in rare repose, to the sound she wanted to carry forever, the heartbeat of the woman she'd chosen, close to hers. Outside, footsteps began reviving the winery, the night had tasks, and the world demanded sequence. Inside, they knew they wouldn't return empty-handed. They rose at last. Claire took the first light test bottle, held the wine to the light, and smiled with the awareness of someone who'd learned to unite courage and care in the same glass. "Tomorrow," she said, already returning to the craft that now held another glow, "we present it together. Hiding nothing, apologizing for nothing new. The team deserves the truth. So do we." Together, Evelyn affirmed, holding the word like holding promises. And before opening the door, Claire sought one more kiss, brief, calm, like a signature at the page's bottom. When they stepped out, the hallway seemed brighter. The house, lighter. The work, more hours. If this story touched you, if you saw yourself in the risk, the choice, or the tenderness that recognizes itself in another, subscribe to Secret Garden Stories, share this video with someone special, and tell us in the comments, what was your first light? What decision opened the path to a love that made sense?